You're the Florida version of Sex in the City, JD.
That's when I'm smoking my cigar.
Never stop chasing your dreams.
And never say never.
Boom! Yes!
Cut down. Got it.
All right. So we've got Lisa Kirkman, and she is a new podcaster who's just started a show called Big Gay Overalls.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to listen because we booked so quick.
I know.
Yeah, we booked so quick, so we're gonna ask her all about it. And she's beaming in from Australia.
Beaming in. She's the first one on our wall since we took the break.
Let's go. Oh,
hey, welcome.
Guys.
Oh, hi there.
Good morning. It's morning over there, right?
It is. It's 8:20 in the morning here.
Wow.
But I've been on the go since 2:30 is my first call on a Thursday. 2:30 in the morning.
Oh,
because I do some work.
Wow.
I do some work for an American company, and everything's like Eastern time because
That's so. Do you want to hear?
I host a pop. Sorry,
my wife is from Brisbane.
Oh yeah, I'm just north of Brisbane. I'm probably about an hour out of Brisbane. I'm about maybe an hour and a half from Brisbane. We're in a small country town just northwest. So yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So she has to get up extra early for calls from the Australia team.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I host a podcast and I coach clients for them, but it's 2:30 on a Thursday is so I wake up at 2 and go and do the thing and try not to wake up my wife when I get out of the bedroom and not disturb the dog and all the rest of the stuff.
Oh my goodness. That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
So I was just telling JD, I haven't even had a chance to listen because we booked you so quick.
You
know,
that was awesome.
Yeah, I saw your thing on Threads. I'm convincing JD to get a little bit more active on Threads because
I'll be there tonight.
Right? I mean, honestly, the community and the engagement on Threads has been unlike anything ever. And I am booking most of our guests through Threads.
Yeah, it's it reminds because I was very early adopter to Twitter back in the day. And it was like that was the place to be. And
early days.
When Threads started, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of like Twitter, but not quite as
nicer, but nicer.
A little nicer. Some of those people are still over on Twitter. We just leave them over there.
Yeah, and then we don't want them. Right. Yeah.
So, but I found that the first time I got onto Threads is, I think, the first time the day it was launched, I went, I'm just going to get on here because I can't get FOMO. And I was like, it's actually quite nice here. It's quite pleasant. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I quite like it. And you don't have to scroll through everyone's photos. It's like, you can actually just get that little snippet of text. And I like Instagram because you can get the photo without having to read everybody's story. And if you want everything, go to Facebook. That's fine. But, yeah.
It is 100% accurate. And I have these conversations with my mom who's like 78, right? And she'll go, why are these men commenting and trying to talk to me on Facebook that I don't even know who they are? And I'm like, stop answering every question in the Boomers Are the Best community Facebook page. They're just trolling you. Like, just stop it. It's engagement bait,
Yeah.
I had to teach her this. Like, your mom's there for life lessons for you. Today she taught me that. I was on the phone with her and I was cleaning out my fridge and I was like, how do you know if blue cheese goes bad? Because it kind of always smells bad, And she goes, it's a special kind of funk.
Words you never really want to have your mother utter, but cool.
It's a special kind of funk. Like if you sniff it and you go, oh, and you make a face, toss it. But if you sniff it and you're like, yeah, that's bad. That's just blue cheese. But if it's a special kind that makes you say, ew, throw it out. So I was like, a life lesson. Thank you, Mother.
Yeah, it's a gift that still keeps giving. That's for sure.
Exactly. It's great. It's great.
I actually had an answer for you for
Oh
that.
gosh, yeah. She never lets me down with her life lessons. But yeah, one of the other ones was that she was telling me, I was saying how I recently fell down and scuffed my head and was having a bad day because of it. And I said, the thing I love about my wife is that she will, on the sneak, buy the most bizarre, weird pajamas. And I don't know that she has them. So she'll go, I'm just going to go upstairs and take a shower. And then she'll come down and she'll be in like a Highland Coo covered muumuu with leopard print pants and cow print Uggs and some weird towel wrap on her head just to make me laugh. And my mom goes, when you have found someone that'll do something that stupid for you to make you laugh, but also puts up with the fact that you snore, you have the worst diet, and that you probably passed out because you have low blood sugar and don't take care of yourself, and she loves you anyways, that's a keeper.
Yeah.
Thank you for the words of wisdom, Mother.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's good.
Yeah. So yeah, we often talk about our moms on here, but I think JD and I, when we initially started this podcast, it was because we felt that we wanted to connect not only with our community, but the older portion of our community. And I'm getting that vibe from some of the things that I've read, about your episodes. So is that what prompted you to do this?
Yeah, essentially, coming out later in life has its own particular challenges to, particularly like for the I don't know what they're calling the current generation of people, but that can come, basically hit, primary school and decide what they want to be, who they want to be, who they want to be with. So coming out later has its own thing, and it can be very isolating, and it can be very, confusing, and that's one of the things, when I started thinking about it to myself, it's a confusing, complex, confronting journey, but it can also be, and I think that's what get lost, that it can be beautiful and amazing and exciting and everything else. And when I see Facebook groups and stuff that have been set up by people who just want to harvest clients because they're a life coach or they're a thing, and it's a vulnerable group, and because everyone's wanting an answer or a pathway, and that doesn't sit well with, I can read that stuff a mile away. I'm like, no, this is why you created this. But I wanted to create a way of, through talking with my business coaches, because they're the first people I actually came out to, and they're like, yeah, well, when I said to them one day, well, I think I'm gay, and they're like, well, welcome, thanks for getting here, because we've been waiting for you, because they could see it a mile away.
It's so anticlimactic, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like,
and up for this big speech, and they're like,
well, duh. And but they kept saying to me that my story was my superpower, and my mess is my message, and they'd encouraged me at one point to start writing my life story. And they were like, there is someone who is going to read your journey, and it's going to save them, or they're going to get something out of it, or they're going to see some hope.
Yeah.
And I sort of struggle with that, because I'm like, some things that I don't want to put down or talk about or whatever. And then I just decided one day, I thought, that's it, I'm just going to do it in a podcast format, because if nobody listens, that's cool. Didn't do it with any intention, but it was a way of me talking through various stages in my journey without worrying about, did I put an apostrophe in the right place, and it's very unfiltered, and it was more for me.
That knocks you off course a little bit,
Yeah,
I know when I was writing, my first book was about similar to what you're saying, the whole journey and coming out and how it affected me, my family, all that stuff, that I would be just on a roll, blah, 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 getting it all out, and wow, this is just flowing, things are flowing. And then I'd look up and I'd be like, oh my God, that's a run-on sentence. I got to put a period there. I got to change that. That should be a paragraph.
And
it knocks you off course.
hard.
Yeah.
And
so
then because
you're
I'm a
right.
structured person,
Yeah.
and I would go, oh, well, where should I start? Should I start when I was born? And then and I wanted to tell my story in order, but like, is this too much time to talk about my grandparents? And now I feel like I've moved over here. Is this a separate chapter? And I'm like, like brain
None of this is
overload.
cohesive. Yeah.
Whereas, like, God forbid, should anyone ever actually edit what I'd written, because they're just going to go, what is this thing that you've given me? But the podcast gave me a vehicle to brain dump. And, I used to own a CrossFit gym for many years. So I'm used to speaking to camera and just speaking. I've done some public speaking stuff. So like, I'm just going to talk, and I don't play it back because ain't no one got time for that in their life, and I don't need that. But my wife takes great delight in sitting down and making me watch the YouTube version on our 85-inch TV. And I'm like, why? Why must I endure this hell? It can be. But so I can just get it out. But what I wanted to, the point of it, I guess, was if someone, because I know how isolating it can be, that if someone else goes, and that's what's blown me away when I get different comments, or people have commented in, because you can't really promote a podcast in a Facebook group because the people who own the group are protective. But where I have shared it selectively, like people are like, oh, I wish I had this 6 years ago, or I wish I had this. And my business coach, who I told him about this, he goes, yeah, I hate it when I'm right. And I'm like, go away. But it's still, the sole purpose is still for me to navigate like the stuff I'm still working through. So I officially came out in 2021, late 2023.
Oh.
The 1st of June 2021 was when I told my husband I was gay.
Oh.
And we'd been married 17 years. And I'd moved out for 6 months prior to that, because I was like, I need to work through some things and think through some things. So 1st of June is kind of like, well, that's official, because then I could tell other people. I'd sort of told some people, I thought, well, there's a few people know now. I don't want him to find out,
through someone else. Right.
Yeah. Because that's not awkward at all. And so I'm still navigating, one thing I've learned, it feels like that you've got to come out in some way every day to some other person.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how or why. Like someone, like I feel like you've always got to be going, oh yeah, this is my wife. Yes, I'm married. It's to a woman, or some other aspect. But I feel like over the 3 years, like the whole journey continues to change and evolve. So I did an episode about 2 weeks ago now about labels, 2 or 3 weeks ago, about all the when you're a straight woman married, you're a wife and you're a straight female. That's essentially what defines you, apart from being a mother or what. But essentially, it's like, okay, well, I'm gay. Well, what sort of gay are you? Are you, there's a laundry list of options that you can pick. And if you are this on the laundry list, then you shouldn't be attracted to this on the laundry list, and they won't be attracted back. And I was like, so it was just confusing to me. And so I'm
really
still navigating.
Overwhelming. Yeah.
It is. And,
it
and
used
trying
to be like LGBT, Now we've got the Q and the I and the A, and we've got the intersex and non-binary.
Well, I'm glad we got in at the first letter, because we can't be mucked around with. We can't get pushed further down the alphabet. We're the lead off. So I think that, but even the way that I identified myself, I was like, well, to me, I never really identified with the word lesbian, because I felt like that had some, from things I experienced, growing up in a small rural town, like that had real negative connotations, same as the word dyke, same as the word butch, and all of that sort of stuff. And then someone said, well, you can't be gay because that's for men to call themselves. I went, what, like, who makes these arbitrary decisions about what? And then where do I fit? And I realized, like, I've been on this journey now for, 3 years, but, technically nearly 50. But there's still things I'm figuring out that, well, if I'm figuring out, someone else is surely figuring out. Maybe we can have a conversation about it together.
Yeah, that's a great thing, because it spawns conversation. Maybe not even with you, but for someone else to talk about it with their friend or their partner or whatever. But I see so much of that, like I just was telling JD, like on Threads, I follow, so many new people. And one of them is a trans man who said that he doesn't feel comfortable using the word queer, and because he's attracted to women, so it feels like it doesn't make him gay. And it was just like this confusion. And all I could think of to say, because sometimes I won't say anything at all because I don't want to spawn like a big conversation or anything through it. But I was just like, you do you. You know what I mean? Like, you do you identify how you want, you tell someone how you feel. They're not there to tell you what you should like and what you shouldn't like. So just you do you is like, honestly, love who you want to love, call yourself what you want to call yourself. And I think that's what happens, because I mean, look, think about it. When you're married to a man all these years or whatever, you're not keeping up with what's going on in the queer community, and then now that you've figured out yourself and your feelings and you've got to, jump in that pond, you're jumping into, something that like, I always say like, I feel like I've been on this ride since the 90s, and it moves and changes so quick that I've literally given up on trying to be politically correct. And
Right. Oh, you can't.
I respect whatever anybody want. You want your pronouns are this, fine, I'll use those, but I just don't worry about it where I'm concerned. Like my bubble is fine. You know what I mean? And I think that's what it comes down to, is really creating that community within your life that you're comfortable with. And by having a podcast, you get to do that, and you're dictating it. You're putting it out there and people are following your journey.
Are you finding that you're connecting with people who have similar experiences from you, that are like so happy that you're there and sharing the fact that I can relate to what you said about, I didn't grow up in a small town, but the word lesbian had a lot of negative connotation to it growing up. Not in my family, but just in general in the world at that time, in the 70s, and what's interesting is the young people now don't even know what that feels like, because it's so different and accepted more or less now. I mean, depending on where you live, obviously, but across the board, so much more accepted, but yet in mainstream, but yet for people in our generation, like, it's still different for us. It was still probably hard for you to tell people that you knew for your whole life who you are.
And it is like so in the small town I grew up in, because my wife is keen to go back there and, we'll go and check on my grandparents' graves and she wants to see where I grew up. And I'm like, ugh. So some people out there, because I know out there throughout my entire teenagers, early 20s, I was always accused of, you're a dyke, you're butch, you're gay, whatever,
Well, we're taking those words back though now, right?
Yeah. But they were, I didn't run around with every, man in town. I wasn't, and so then if you were friends with another female, then that's what it was in the town. And I was starting to get hung up as going, those people are going to say things. And I thought, then I started thinking about it going, why do I even care about people who I have had no contact with in 30 years?
Right.
What they care about. Right. And it's an interesting way that you still, when you go back into that old environment, you flip back to some of that past, it's trauma, I guess. And it's because some of that stuff, I worked so hard to be not what they said I was. So
right.
And then you go, well, now I've turned out what you said I was, Hawkeys. But it's having that understanding that I can still just, like, Denise was saying, is like, you do you, and whatever makes you happy. And if someone doesn't fit within, and that's what I learned through my process of like coming out, is like 99% of the people that I chose to keep in that inner circle were great. They're like, well, they were either like, well, duh, or well, wow, that's so awesome for you.
Yeah.
If I had someone who was like, oh, really? I was like, okay, you're out into the next circle, and then the next circle, and the next circle.
Yeah.
I know where now to fit you in the hierarchy.
Exactly.
And because I'd rather surround myself with, good humans and like-minded individuals. And just on 12 months ago, we moved to this small rural town, and straight away I was like, well, how's this going to go over in a little, country town? Queensland, it has like I volunteered some time with the local show society, which is like your state fair, the organisers for that.
Yep.
All, much, much older people, lived out here all their lives. And I went, well, how's this going to go when we rock up to a meeting? No, mister, oh, what are you girls up to? And, we actually went to a race day on Sunday, and one of the ladies who is always there taking the horse races, who takes some money at the thing, I got to know her through, doing the show stuff. And we walked in and just talking about my photography, and she said to my wife, well, you're taking some lovely photos as well. And I said, well, she's got a good teacher. And this lady, who would be, I'm going to say possibly 70s, turned around and fired back, well, it helps when you're sleeping with the teacher, doesn't it?
Oh.
Lost our shit, because it was not what we expected her to fire back with at all. So
Right.
we've had like this level of humor and acceptance in this community where nobody thinks twice, versus if I go back to where I grew up, I have that. And even she's talking about this, my wife talking about the small town where she grew up, she's like, it's still very homophobic there. It's still would not be easy for somebody who's 15, 16, 17 to come out there and be open. And to get back to your question you asked me, through the podcast, I've had so many people reach out going, me too, and stuff that I read in like I'm in a few Facebook groups, and that prompted my episode I did this week on the process I went through to separate and divorce and have those conversations with my, now ex-husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so many people are either at the point of getting ready to have that conversation, or they've had it and they're still trying to navigate it, whether they've still got to cohabitate because of financial reasons, or like we never had any kids, it's just a dog we've got to co-parent. But that all still comes with its own challenges and ways to navigate it. I thought, well, no one's talking about how they went about it. So I thought, I'm just going to put mine out there and say, here's how I approached, here's what I was afraid of. And here's, I was terrified that the whole world was going to blow up and everyone was going to hate me and I'm disrupting everybody's lives. And I talked about how I'd had so many conversations with my therapist about like what's going to happen, like every call I felt like we'd just talk about the same stuff, because I still hadn't done it. Still, we're going to do it this week. No. But then in sharing that, like hopefully someone else who happens across it will go, oh, it doesn't have to be, like we're still very close friends and we still talk constantly. It doesn't have to be acrimonious, and it doesn't have to be World War III. Like people's feelings are going to be hurt, but, just try to approach it as being a good human. Then you don't have to automatically assume that the world's going to end.
Yeah.
Now, everybody's situation's different, and and I get that. But when all you're seeing in the Facebook groups is like, this is horrible, this is, I separated 6 years ago, now he's got a new partner and I feel devastated about it. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Like, it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
If you're good with you and you do you, as we said, then you can both navigate it. Like, I'm sure it's been tricky for him and at times uncomfortable, but we've just navigated through in a way that works for everybody, and everyone can kind of, be a good human. He was at the race day we were at on Sunday with his photography club, and he sent me a message Saturday night going, so it's not awkward on Saturday, how do you want to be introduced? And if people come up and we're talking, and I went, well, firstly, we're friends, so I thought this is my friend would be appropriate. But hey, if you want to say I'm the bitch ex-wife lesbian, cool, like you do you. And he goes, guess we'll friends is good then. I said,
Yeah.
don't overthink it.
You didn't want any
doesn't-
more pressure than friends.
That's
Yeah,
the key thing though, like right there, what you said, don't overthink it. You know, like sometimes I think, you know, we put so much on ourselves because you know, our situations, I think can speak for all of are all very similar. You know,
Yeah.
I was, you know, married too and had to come out to my husband first, you know, and I went to therapy before I did it. And then I dragged him into therapy so I could tell him with the therapist because fortunately for me, my therapist worked in a plaza where my mother's restaurant was. So I would see her every day, morning coffee, you know, afternoon lunch, you know, whatever. And she was familiar with my mom and she, you know, knew Chuck, my, you know, my husband at the time. So it was so comfortable and easy, you know, to talk to her and not have to say, you know, I could just, you know, say the name and she knew who I'm talking about. You know, it was all very familiar. And we, you know, after I told him, we kept it to ourselves for like a year before telling our parents, you know, and first it was mine and he came with me to every single person, you know, that I
wow.
wanted to tell. He would come and say, look at me, I'm fine. You know, we've been dealing
Yeah.
with this for a year. I know you're just having to, you know, absorb this and process it right now, but we wanted to make sure that we were both cool with it before we told anybody else. And I think, you know, that was a really good way to handle it because from that point on, when I finally did move out, he already was in a relationship with someone that was moving in. So him and his partner and, you know, me being on my own, like family Christmases, Christmas Eves, you know, every holiday, birthday, everything all together, both families, no
Yeah. Yeah.
issues. You know what I mean? Like we
Mm.
just lucked out like so much. JD still works with her ex-husband.
Yeah,
So
every day. And what's funny is I'm a musician and I play shows locally, and he comes with his now wife to see my shows, and we're kind of buddies, you know, his wife and I. Just started. I think she didn't know how to take me at first because they're kind of new, like in the last say 5 years. Um, but see, you guys had almost the same experiences where you were brave enough to go to a therapist, you know, talk it through and then tell your ex-husband. I, on the other hand, just kept it all in. It came out through my music, and I was playing in the gay bars. You know, that was my escape to do that. And I just ran to the music, which made me a terrible wife, which I now am starting to think about, you know, like, and it ended up we were always, because we grew up together, we were together, we knew each other since we were 16. We were married for 25 years, so we were still like friends, but there was absolutely no passion or anything in the marriage. So here I am running to do my music, touring a bit back then, and he ends up cheating on me. So our marriage fell apart from the cheating and not from me being brave enough. I wished I did what you guys did. I really wish I had the courage to do what you guys did. I didn't. I just like kind of like just kept it inside and just ran away from it. But then when I found out about the cheating, because the person he was cheating with revealed it to me, um, that was the reason the marriage ended. So it was like really wasn't all his fault, you know. I get that. I knew it the minute I saw that. She was kind enough to give me pictures of the two of them together, and when I
So
saw,
kind.
she
I
was
think I
kind
was
enough.
there. Was I there that night?
You might have been. It was she left them on the back of my truck when I was
At
loading to
Lesbians,
at
right?
Leslie's. Yeah, you were
I
there
was
that.
there.
And she left them in a folder that said pictures for JD, and I thought they were pictures of me, like somebody took a picture of me playing that night. And
Wow.
anyway, the first thing I said was, "This is my fault," when I looked at the pictures, because I knew I was running away from the marriage and I was not around a lot, and my mom was always telling me, you leave him alone too much, you should really not go away that much. I think my family kind of saw all of this in me, but they just didn't, you know, put it all
And
together.
Jay, wasn't it like it wasn't immediate after that you came out? You still didn't,
Right. I wasn't
right?
I was still processing to not, I had to tell them about the marriage ending because we were together for so long and my dad wasn't well at the time and I didn't want to upset him. So I didn't say anything for 2 years, almost 3 years we lived together. We cohabitated, like you said, Lisa, financial reasons. And also we hid it from the family like you guys did, Denise, but for
Yeah.
different reasons. I was just hiding the cheating and the fact that the marriage was over. But I kind of had a girlfriend pretty soon after. But what was interesting is when he found a girlfriend, it bothered me. Even though I didn't want him back, it still
Mm.
bothered me, and that's when I couldn't live together anymore. I'm like, I don't think we could do this, like, because he wasn't coming home then. So
Mm.
it was just, I was still coming home every night, so I was different. But he knew I had somebody, and he knew it was a woman, but he didn't say
It's
anything.
it's tricky, isn't it? Like we hide so much of ourselves away to protect other people. Like I
Yes.
was trying to protect him and so I have a very complex and difficult relationship with my mother. And like mum still lives with him because she was living in the house with us. And he has not, put her out or anything like that because she looks after the dog. I think it's mutually beneficial. But
But
I was like, he's a good person. He doesn't deserve this.
yeah,
Oh,
And he didn't ask for this. And, he married me in good faith and, all the rest of it. But, similar to you, I guess, JD, we were like those flatmates for the best
yeah.
part of, you know, the last 10 years of our marriage because there was no intimacy, there was no, and
Right.
I'd had I guess I've since learned it's a term, like I had my catalyst relationship in 2010, and that's when I was like, okay, this is who I think I am, but I did nothing with it for another 10 years until I met my now wife and that's when I got to the point where I'm like, I could never see myself leaving that environment because it was safe. Like I knew where everything was, it's secure. Like I was like, he's
Hmm.
gonna kick me out in the street, kick my mother out, and I do not want to live with her again. That's not gonna work. Like, how am I gonna do this? But when I met the person, I was like compelled to then go, well, I either have to own this life or I'm not gonna have this. And not having this was so not worth the loss. It
Wow.
was I just felt like when she moved down to be closer to me, the original plan was, I'd just go and stay on weekends and we'd just, hang out. And then there was a little mini 3-day COVID lockdown. And then I went back home for a night and I was like, I don't belong here. I don't fit in this. And I was like, went back there the next day and I said, I can't go back there again. So I went back and said, that's when I said I need to move out. But I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make it happen. I don't know how I'm going to get through it, but I'm compelled that this is because I'd never been in a space since I was born where I felt okay to be me and accepted. And, I always felt like, particularly once my mother moved into the house, and because I'd lived in New South Wales, so I'd lived about 10 hours drive away for 18 months in another city for work. And so by the time I got back, because mum had already moved in at that point because of issues with where she was living, but it was like I was a visitor in my own home because she'd be
yeah,
like, well, you need to fit in with us now. I'm like, well, hang on a minute. It's
Wow.
like,
yeah,
and she would shop and buy food for meals for them. Well, you don't eat what we eat.
Oh,
So figure it. And whereas when I, first moved in with Sharon, she'd like made sure that she waited and had dinner with me every night
yeah,
because that was important. And I was like, I can't trade. And, the more times I've spent, particularly in the early days, going back to the house, I was like, I don't how did I exist here for so many years? How did I exist? Like, when you can turn around and look back, like, how did I live like this for that long?
Yeah.
And we have a really good like relationship with him. Like, we go over on Christmas Eve. Sharon comes with me. We have dinner there with him and mum, and we work out stuff around Easter and whatever. And like, he'll have a good conversation with her, and, you know, just general stuff. Like, they're not besties, but, you know, it's not an issue where he's like, no, she can't come to the house or anything like that. Like, we've done it in a way that, and then, you know, it took us I'd already proposed to Sharon. So I was like, oh, I better get divorced because I can't get remarried unless I'm divorced. So that, you know, I was doing things that was forcing my hand to move forward with life. Otherwise, I'd still be sitting here and probably still married, and we wouldn't have got around to divorcing. And
But
then
once you were experiencing it, didn't you feel like these are the natural next steps?
Yep.
Like,
yep.
even though you were forcing yourself, you know,
but
to
every
move
step along the
forward,
way was trying to protect everybody else. And
Yeah.
I was forcing myself to be uncomfortable and move forward, but I was still trying to go, well, how do I make this so it doesn't cause a confrontation, doesn't cause and all of the things that I was most worried about happening never happened, really.
Right.
And, you know, my mum's always going to be my mum. She's always going to, that's her jam. But generally with 90% of the people that like Sharon's family, I've never experienced such inclusion and love from a family as I have from her aunties and, you know, that sort of thing, where they've just like embraced me 100%. They're like, well, we already love you because you love Sharon and she's really happy. So that's all we want, like, you know. And so I think that, like, I've never experienced that. So I'm like, well, if I'd stayed where I was, look at all these things that I would have yet to experience, whereas before I was just existing.
Yeah.
And it's only the luxury of hindsight that gets you to that point.
Right.
But I think for a lot of people that, because I was there, it's overwhelming, it's terrifying, it's like, I can't see the other side of this storm. All I can see is 25-foot waves and you know, the drum, and here I am in my little rainbow dinghy just trying to figure out a way through it. Once you navigate, wearing my big gay overalls as my business coach. Because when we moved out to our rural area, he goes, oh, you in your gay farmer overalls? And then when I came to name the podcast, I was like, overalls are a good analogy, because it's like you put on clothes to do work, and you've got to do work on you to accept you are. Like, I still feel a lot of guilt for that 2010 relationship. I'm like, that's not one of my values, that I would have cheated or done things. But it's, you know, when we went through the process of telling family, so he's not very communicative, so I think he just sent his father a text Facebook message. So if you want me to talk to anyone, I will, so I can explain to them, no one did anything wrong here, it's just biology.
Oh, wow.
That's
interesting.
So we're in a group chat with his cousins who we were close to, so I just sent them a message, and he was in the chat, said, Sharon and I are all good, there's no whatever, we're amicable, it's just biology, and everyone made jokes, and it was all good. And when he spoke to his father and his stepmother and his mother, was like, is that all good? And he goes, yep, no dramas. So it's cool. So we, you know, I said, but if anyone asks you something, or, because I know some things have, some people who are aware then may have said something to someone who isn't aware through mutual friends.
Yeah.
I said, you know, if something comes up, then, you know, just let me know and I'll happily talk to somebody about it. Like, no big deal. Yeah. And even like the first year that I was out, and Sharon and I, we thought we were going to go to a Pride event because we thought we might like that. I said to him, I said, we're going to this Pride thing just in case I appear on the news and you have awkward questions from people like, why is Lisa at the Pride? I said, I'm not going to be leading the parade, but, you know, I might pop up somewhere on social media or something. And he's like, yep, radio. Like, and I've always tried to be super respectful of, you know, I set up a different Facebook, you know, that was private, and I have blocked him and all his friends, but we still have a Facebook where we're friends and interact with people and things, because I don't want to not be able to talk to people about my life and things, but I also don't want it shoved in front of his face.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't even know that we really had to discuss that because we were so ingrained, our families were so ingrained, like my mom was hanging out with my, mother-in-law to go garage sailing or whatever, thrift shopping on the weekends. And, so there wasn't anything that I kept from anyone, like I didn't want to go down that route of having to separate stuff. And then, when I started doing the first podcast in 2006, it was all out there, and then we started hosting events and there were, pictures and magazines and, newspapers and stuff like that. So I just wanted a clear path because I knew that's what I wanted to do. Now I'm familiar with the community. How do I give back, kind of thing. And I lost count of how many pride events that Chuck and his fiance came to,
Nice.
and supported.
Cool.
Yeah, I have tons of pictures of him at different pride events and stuff like that. And he loved all my friends. He would always like, even, for that year that we were living together and hadn't even told anyone. And I was going out on weekends and everything. And I had like a little group of lesbians that I hung out with. He would say, invite them over. Like
Aw.
we would have poker nights and pizza nights and stuff. And he loved all of them, like I remember one was in like this really crappy relationship, just getting shit on left and right. And I came home and I was telling him about it. And he was like, you know what? You know what? Tell her that she's got a room here. Like, we'll fix up the alcove. We'll make a room. I'll get my work van. We'll go load up her shit and bring her back. She doesn't need to be staying in that place, like living like that, And I mean, like that was just he just adopted everyone, It's like I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah, we really
And I think it's
lucked out.
stories like that are powerful to be out in the world, that people gives them hope that there's something amazing on the other side.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that
I mean,
with some work.
we struggled with it. Like it was hard. Like, there were tears and stuff. And he was like, well, maybe we can make this work for the tax benefits. No, because it's not fair to you, like, but I know that my guilt was instantly alleviated when he was in another relationship.
Oh God,
Like, I
yeah.
just felt so absolved. You know what I mean? Like he's happy, he's got the house. As his girlfriend was moving from California to Florida, she was pulling in the driveway with a moving van, and I was loading up my Jeep with things. It was like that,
Wow.
and
Wow.
I wasn't even in my condo. I still had like another month of where I was staying in the house with them and her little 6-year-old. And it was the coolest thing because we decided we were like trading furniture. Because I don't want to take this couch, and she was like, Ginger was like, you could take mine. We'll keep the leather one. You take mine. You like mine. I'm like, I do like yours. She was like, you take mine. What about these nightstands? Like, well, yeah, you want to keep those? We were literally swapping things out to make,
Wow.
it was just the most comfortable, easy thing. And I think like the thing that I loved that Chuck would say when we were telling people or when we would have to tell people or whatever, he would always say that we were together for a reason, and I think it was to bring our families together.
Mhm.
Maybe it wasn't, we shouldn't have been married, but there was a reason that we were together. It's because our family makes one big family so well, and nothing's going to change. Like
Yeah.
that was his, like nothing's going to change. I'm fine. She's fine. Everybody's fine. We're still going to come together. We're still going to eat good food, hang out. You have good Christmases, and it was that assurance I think that everybody needed to be okay. Because if we would have just told them and left and walked away, I don't know that they would have really believed that everybody was okay. Like they had to see it, they had to hear
I
it.
agree. That
So
was
Yeah, I
nice
mean,
did that. that he was willing to do that, like Lisa's
Yeah.
ex-husband.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And it's a big thing. Like at the time I still owned the gym that I had, he would still come down and, you know, be involved in events and help set things up and he'd take photos. And I think some of the members were a bit confused for a time because they're like, well, we think she's with her, but isn't she married to him? And isn't everybody
when you
supposed to
gotta
hate each
start
other? And it was never
explaining.
weird because the members in the community would still go up and greet him warmly and how are you going? Even the ones that knew what was happening, the ones that didn't know what was happening just continued on with their lives. But at first you could see people going, but how do you split up with somebody but they still turn up and everything's good? Like where's the yelling and the screaming and the awkwardness? Like there was none of that because we were I was very intentional about that not happening and also making sure that my wife was okay, you know, through the process, that it wasn't awkward or uncomfortable or anything for her. Because
Right.
I don't want her, you know, but she felt so secure in our relationship. It wasn't like, oh, well, you're going to go back to him or you're going
Yeah.
to
That's how
do
my
the
wife
thing.
was. She always got along really well with Chuck. In fact,
Yeah.
Chuck's fiance and my mom flew together over here to London and stayed, you know, for a week. And, you know, like, so I think I was always worried about her being comfortable, you know, like, how do you want me to introduce you? Do I have to say, this is my ex-husband's fiance? You know what I mean? Like, do you want, you know, so yeah, like I always ran that stuff by her, but I think that she was always extremely aware of how close Chuck and I were. And and same with my wife, you know, and you've got to have like a really solid relationship with the right people to be okay with that, because people I had dated in the past before I met my wife were not okay with it. And that was my first, that's always that was my first red flag, you know. If you're
And
not okay with him,
we had
you're
to do a lot of work and have those conversations, and so that I could, what do you need from me around this space? Because I can't see a point that he and I would not be friends even in the future. Like, yes, when the dog passes away and mum's not living there, like our contact will be, you know, less and less. But it's, you know, we're still, like, if something bad happened to him or his family, I'd still care about it. Like,
right, exactly.
but, you know, what can I do for you, or what do you need from me to help you? And I was always incredibly transparent. Like when she would be triggered or upset or feel a certain way, I would just talk about it. It's okay. I understand that. What, you know, and I'm 100% transparent about, this is what I'm going to do. This is what it's for. This is what we do. Like, you can pick up my phone anytime. All of that stuff built that foundation of trust and security for her, that she's not, I said, you know, that's not where I want to be anymore. Like that's not, like, I've put my stick in the stand. This is where the hill I'm going to die on, this one here.
Yeah.
It's you that I'm flipping my whole life upside down, where I never ever thought I'd do it, but it's because of what we have that I'm prepared to do that.
Right.
And she never once asked me to do that or expected me to do that, like, in your own time, like whatever you want to do, but making sure that I was taking care of her as my first priority, and then, you know, everybody else. But that was built on the foundation of our relationship, where nothing was off the table. Nothing was, oh, why are you worried about this? Do you not trust me? It was never about that. It was about, what do you need in this moment to help you get through this?
Yeah.
How do we do this together? And
you know, my ex-wife was a lot like, never came to me and said, I feel uncomfortable about this, or this is weird, or anything like that. I was the one that was always checking. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just felt like I was overdoing it to the point of her saying, will you stop? You know, like, so I think I again, like, right back to it, overthinking everything because you're so nervous. But I said to her, it's not because you're giving me a vibe, you know, or I'm picking up on something. It's because of relationships that I had in the past, you know, where they would say they were okay with it, and then some, you know, big argument would happen and they would bring it all up, you know, so she was
Come
like,
back all of a sudden. When it comes in the argument, it's bad.
yeah, right, exactly.
And that
never
sitting on it.
happened, you know, and it never happened. And so she was just like, you can't compare me to them, or you can't bring that with you and put it on me because I don't feel that way. Like, I get it. I respect it. I love him. Maybe not as much as you do, but I love, I love him. I mean, when he passed away in 2021, 2022, I think, maybe 2022, she was in Australia and I was here in London. And I knew that he was getting sicker and sicker and it wasn't going to be good. So when Ginger called me, I knew it was bad news. It was horrible, really hard. And so I, of course, texted my wife and told her what was going on. She called immediately. And the first thing she said was, do you want a plane ticket? Like, do you need to go back? And I'm like, first of all, I can't. There were so many restrictions, and it was nuts to try and think about getting back there for everything, the funeral and all that. I missed all of it, but you know what? They let me video in. Like, I got to FaceTime, and my best friend read the eulogy. I wrote it, and Donna, my bestie,
Aw,
said
Donna.
it,
That's awesome.
and Ginger filmed it for me. But it was super, super hard. And my big fear after that was that my relationship with her was going to start spreading. You know what I mean? Because he was like the thing that we had in common, and now he was gone. But she moved. She ended up having to move because they weren't married, and the house didn't go to her. And his sister kicked her out, and it was awful and vindictive and terrible. But she moved back to California where, her son was. And we still text all the time. Like, something funny, whatever, I'll send her a picture of something, or we'll do my ex-husband was a Steeler fan, Pittsburgh Steelers. So we would still like talk about the game, a little bit, like, well, that was brutal. Good thing Chuck didn't see that, like just texting each other, that kind of stuff. And she'd actually given me one of his Steeler jerseys. And
Wow.
she said, I think you bought this for him and he wore it like every Sunday or whatever. So I thought you would want that. So when I was home, I didn't even get to see her when she was leaving for California. She just left a bunch of things at my mom's for me. And, we had spoken about it, but it was just, one of those things. Like, I worried about keeping that relationship, intact too. I mean, it just kind of goes to show you, when you've got the right people in your life for whatever the reason is, you just do what it takes to, to make it
Nothing's
all
a problem.
right.
Like, it's easier. But I think sometimes when people are stuck in the storm, they don't realize the good people that they have in that circle if they just let them in. It can be,
Yeah.
there's that, it's semi-religious kind of thing. Like, this person, they were drowning and they had a lifeguard come up and they're like, oh no, I'm waiting for the Lord to save me or whatever. And so the lifeguard goes away and da-da-da. And eventually they drown, they go up to heaven and they're like, I was waiting for you to save me. Well, I sent you 5 lifeguards and a boat, but you booked all of them.
Right. Yeah.
But we have
That's a
those
good
people around
analogy.
us, but they aren't what we think, or we don't ask them for the help and say, actually, I'm drowning here. Here's a situation. I mean, to give people a chance to love us and care for us and accept us, because we're so worried about the opposite happening. So we just cut all that sort of stuff off. And then when you get to the end and you see, or, sort of through the journey, and you can see those relationships, you're like, oh, you can actually appreciate it. But by being honest is not the right word, but by being open,
Vulnerable.
and vulnerable, you can actually harness the power to make that whole journey easier.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one of my very good friends, he was one of the coaches I had at the gym, and I kept saying to him, because I felt bad I hadn't told him anything yet. I'm like, we need to catch up. We need to have a talk about a few things. And he's like, yeah. And we kept missing each other. And I remember the day I said, I'm coming down now. Are you still there? He goes, yeah, let's talk now. And I went, right. So got down there. And he looked really pensive when I walked in the gym. And I said, oh, I need to talk to you about some things. And I said, well, first thing I need to tell you is that, I'm gay. And he gave me the biggest hug. He said, oh, thank God. I thought you were going to tell me you had cancer and we're dying of something. He said,
That's my friend
He was overthinking.
Yeah, but because I was saying, oh, we need to have a talk about something. They're like, well, I didn't want to send it to you on Messenger, dude. But,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
but then
that's
the
fine.
second thing is, Sheridan and I, okay, we're working our way through everything. Don't know what it looks like, but I just wanted you to know. And he's like, amazing. And his wife, who had always sort of been a little bit, hot and cold with me, that's just the person she is, nothing wrong with her. She's lovely. She came in the next day because clearly went home and told her, and she's given me the biggest hug. She goes, if you need any help figuring out how to separate, I've been through it with property and just, I'm so happy for you. And I'm like, wow, wasn't expecting that. So if I hadn't have been vulnerable and opened myself to that, then I couldn't have got that back. And realized that I've got people in my circle who give a shit and who care unconditionally. They don't care who I'm sleeping with. They don't have to watch me over the breakfast table, but they just want me to be okay. Are you happy? Is he happy? Okay, great. Is everybody okay? Great.
I had that same experience. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say my bestie that I've been doing a duo with, a music duo for 20 plus years. She's married with a son. I was married for most of those years to my ex-husband. And she one day was like, you have to tell me what's wrong with you. But this was after we were divorced. And I went through my first breakup with a woman that just broke me up, like it tore me up. It was the first time I felt heartbreak, like ever in my life like that. And I'd be in the middle of a conversation with her about renovating my condo, and I'd start crying, and I am not like a crier, and she'd be like, what's the matter with you? And I'm like, the reason I was afraid to tell her was because I thought she wouldn't be upset so much that I was gay. She would be upset that I never told her, because we were in a band together with my ex-girlfriend that I was so torn up about. And I was afraid she'd say, we went on the road for gigs together. We shared a cottage together in the Keys. And I was afraid she'd say, you never told me. Like, how could you not tell me? We rehearsed together. We rode together to rehearsal. Anyway, she said the same thing that your friend said when she finally pulled me into a room while they were building this brick wall in my condo, and we're watching them build it. And she goes, I've got to talk to you. And she pulled me into the other room, and the toilets were in the boxes still. And we both sat on the boxes with the toilets. And she's like, what is wrong with you? Because I kept putting it off. I just didn't want to have the conversation with her. And then she gave me the hug. When you started to say that, I was going to say, did your friend think you were going to tell me you were dying? Because that's what she said. I'm so glad you're okay. I thought you were going to tell me you were sick. And I'm like, I'm so glad you're not mad at me for not telling you. You just never know. But you're right. When you have the right people, like my ex-husband is really friends with my girlfriend now. Like, they're really buddies. Danny and Thad, they're buddies. When they come to see me play, they'll talk about me, like how weird I am.
Yeah.
And that's like in all the experiences we've talked about, when people have acted like good humans, it's been no drama. But when someone brings that toxicity and that I guess you'd almost call it coming from a place of scarcity and fear, and then they're not prepared to be vulnerable. Yeah, be vulnerable to have that conversation. That's when the shitstorm starts, and the fighting and the niggling. When you've got someone stirring the pot that doesn't need to be stirred. And because I remember when I first said to Mum, I said, listen, I'm just moving out for a bit. I've just got to work some things out. And so she summons me a couple of days later, said, we need to talk. And like, my mother and I don't talk about anything. Turns out we still don't, because she sat me down. She goes, well, what's going to happen? What's going on? And I said, just Sharon and I are working through some things. I said, she goes, well, how's this going to affect me? So, wow. And I said, well, it won't. I said, because we're not selling the house. We're not selling the farm, like whatever. Like, you'll have somewhere to go. And if not, I'll look after you. Oh, all right then. So when I was at Woolies today, like, she just went into this back to her normal thing. And I said to her, do not bring this up with him. Okay. I said, you don't need to discuss it with him. He's all good. I'm all good. But he doesn't need you asking questions over the dinner table. If you got an issue, bring it to me. Because the last thing I want is her sitting there and putting negative things into his head that would then create doubts or questions or whatever. So I nipped that one in the bud really early, going, you don't need to discuss any of this. Don't upset him. Like, we're good. Just leave it alone. Oh, well, he doesn't talk to me about it anyway. I said, good. Well, don't you bring it up. Because I knew.
Was your mom okay with your sexuality? Did your mom accept that when you told her, when she knew she didn't have to move?
So when I said to her, I said, look, I'm going to tell you that I'm gay. She goes, oh, well, could have seen that coming. That was her entire thing. And she had said for many years, like, and I even called her out on it one day going, she'd said, oh, such and such you went to school with. Did you know she's gay? And I said, yes, Mum, we're Facebook friends. I've seen. And she said, oh, well, I wouldn't care, if any of my kids were gay. I said, you only say that because we're all married, Mum, or partnered off or whatever. Said,
right.
I don't know. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, and so she was just like, and she and Sharon get along fantastically. But when I said to Mum, though, oh, we got engaged, she was just like, that was her whole reaction. I went, okay, cool. And you never asked anything about like the wedding. And I talked to her about, the wedding and da. So I made the decision that I wouldn't be inviting her, because to have her meant I either had to have one of my god-awful sisters to come and escort her and chaperone her, or have someone else to do that. And I didn't want to get in that. But I thought, you've shown no interest in it at all. Like, she knew when we were going to get married. And so I just wound up saying, we're eloping. We're going to have something small, because she's not on Facebook. So I knew she wasn't going to see content from people. But to this day, she's never asked anything about the wedding. Even my ex-husband asked, how did everything go okay on your day for your event, as we called it? Like, that was, she's never asked anything. So, but when Sharon comes over, she's all like, they talk about gardening and stuff and whatever. And I think she likes her more than me most of the time, but she just, she never really had a reaction to it. And, I did hear from a girl I went to school with, and she goes, oh, a little birdie just told me. And I thought, I wonder what little birdie just told you. And her brother, she said, oh, well, actually, I heard from this person. I went, he's the son of a woman that my mother is friends with from this original country town. I said to Mum, did you say anything to X about me? Oh, no, I wouldn't have. I said, really? I said, well, said she's the biggest gossip in town. And she's like, oh, no, she doesn't talk to anyone. I said, well, let me show you this message thread that there's only one place that this person could have heard it, and it's via this woman. Oh, no. And I said, so clearly you've discussed it with people that you know out there. Oh, it's none of my business. I thought. So, yeah, she was just very, oh, well, could have seen that coming. And I was like, cool, moving on with life. And I've tried to start conversations with her, but Mum will not be the sort of person who, she will never validate me. She will never give me, like, nothing's ever good enough. I've learnt through the work that, like, Sharon's helped me do and through therapy, is like, I now no longer have an expectation that she's going to engage with me like a normal human would. So literally when we have a conversation, like tomorrow I've got to spend 4 hours with her taking her to an appointment, pretty much the car trip will be quiet, because I'm not telling her anything. Because if I say, oh, yeah, we did this on the weekend, there's just silence. And she doesn't know how to engage with me. But when she talks about my sister, oh, this one's doing this. And this, oh, yeah, cool. Good chats, Mum. So that's a difficult little thing for me to have learnt to reconcile. And to know that, like, when we got married and our day was amazing and I had the people who were closest to me, but I had zero blood family there.
Wow.
Like zero.
Wow.
Even my cousin, he's technically my mother's cousin, but we had a close relationship for many years. He's quite religious, so I don't know if it's something to do with that, but he's definitely changed in our interactions since I came out to him, because he's like, oh. And then we've kind of drifted apart. So I didn't even have him. I just said, oh, by the way, I'm getting married and we're eloping. It's going to be smallish. Don't stress. So the people I had were my friends or my family of close people in my circle who were, they're my tribe. And I thought, well, my previous life, I did the big wedding. I had 110 people there just to validate who I was. And I'm like,
Right.
I don't need every single person I've ever said hello to come to this. Like, I just want it to be the people who matter to me.
Yeah.
And
I had 4.
yeah.
My mom and one of my good friends and me and my wife. That was it.
Yep.
England,
Yeah,
right?
nice.
Did you get married in England or you get
No,
married?
in Niagara Falls.
Oh, right.
Wow, nice.
But on the Canadian side, because of
Yeah.
her being Australian and me being American, there weren't many places then where you could get married, and especially in the States, because
Right.
we had to find a place where you could do it with just passports. And
Yep.
luckily it was Canada. So then the next thought, my mom like jumped in and said, well, if you guys get married in Niagara Falls, Ontario, we can do a reception on the New York side and at least have, 10, 15 people from the family that are still there. So that's what she did. She planned the reception and she was the one that was, came over the bridge, and my friend from here that is Gemma's boss um flew in from England, and so it was just us 4 in a hotel room overlooking the falls in Canada, and then
Perfect.
we drove back to the New York side and had our reception with family that was there.
Yeah,
But Gemma
perfect.
didn't have any blood relatives there. So I was
Yeah.
very, I was worried about that, but I because this was her first marriage, but my second, I was like, you do whatever you want and I will be there. I'll show up. I'll, whatever. Tell me what to wear. Tell me how many people you want.
Aw.
That
You were
because
the guy.
this was her day,
Yeah.
like it was her. So that
Right.
was what she wanted. She found the
Yep.
celebrant. That was where she wanted to do it, and that was who she wanted there. And it
Nice.
wasn't that she didn't want her family there, but for people to come from Australia to America is a 27-hour journey,
It's a bit of a
and-
walk.
yeah. So yeah, it just wasn't doable.
We because it was Sharon's first marriage as well, I was like, well, I've been proposed to, so I want you to experience that. So
Aw.
I'd
Right.
always said early on, I'm gonna it's important to me that you get to experience someone, choosing you. And, for the wedding, I said, listen, I've done the big foofy dress. That's just not my jam. And I said, I actually want to wear pants and a shirt. Like, well, primarily I want to wear these leather boots that I love. And I went, well, to wear them, I need pants. And, she's like, cool. And for a time she was going to wear a pantsuit as well. But then she was like, oh no, I think I'll wear the dress. I went, great. And we were 100% comfortable on the day. And because her aunties, so her father had passed like 30 odd years ago. So her aunties, and they're a big tribe on that side, were, they just embraced me. They arrived like the day before the wedding, and I'd met them at some lunches prior. They just, one of them who hadn't met me before, I was sitting at the table, we were with our bridal party, and she just come up and gave me the biggest hug, and I could feel her crying as she's holding me.
Aww.
She was just so happy to, and so I don't feel like on the day that I missed having them there, because I
Right.
know that it would have taken away from me being authentically me in that moment and being comfortable, even wearing, pants and a vest,
Yeah.
that my mother wouldn't have something to criticize about it, or,
Right.
Right.
make it look like a boy, or anything why'd you do that? Or we did it by the beach, it's windy, it's this, that. It was just going to take away my attention from being present on the day and
Yeah.
giving her the day. And because I'd already done it once and I knew what I hated about that first time, I was like, okay, this is going to be very different.
Yeah.
I want to be present and not just doing what's expected and ticking the boxes for people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but again, it goes back to having the right people in your circle made that 100% possible. Like, she never thought that she would ever get married.
Yeah.
And
Aw.
well, why not? And we didn't need to, but
Right.
we chose. And in a conventional heterosexual relationship, it is like you start dating something. Well, when are you moving in together? When are you getting engaged? When are you getting married? When are you having kids? For us, there was no need for any of those conversations. It was just like, we now choose to this, not because it's an expected step,
Sure.
Right.
It's just we want to do this because we just feel like it.
Right.
So, and made it about us. Like everything on the day was exactly us rather than.
I love that you
Excuse me.
proposed. I love that you gave her that you wanted to be the one to do that. That's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
It was super, super important to me in that as someone who went through life, who was always last pick for the team and this, that, you know, you never first choice, to give her that experience of someone choosing you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that I nagged my ex-husband into proposing to me. You know, I just gradually wore him down because I wanted what everybody said I would never have.
Right.
And my sister had got married the year before, and it was all like, you know, and I think I was in love with the idea of being in love or having what everyone said I couldn't. So I made sure I had all the things. Yeah. And, oh, you had 103 people? I'm going to have 110. Like, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And, but even just that simple act of being chosen was quite powerful. And that's why I wanted to give that to her, going, like, every day she would ask me, like, will you marry me? And I was like, every night. I was like, no. Like, I've asked you 3 times. You've already said no. Aww. So now you've got to wait for the time, you know. And one day I just decided, that's it. I've got the ring. Just going to do the thing. And
how'd you do
because
it? How'd you propose?
It's not very creative. I had the ring and I was waiting for her to finish work, and I was like busting all day, and she sort of knew something was sort of going on, and I waited for her to finish work, and she went in the bedroom, and so she was sitting on the edge of the bed, and I just walked in and got down to one knee and asked her, would she marry me? And that's, you know, gave her the ring, and she was very excited. And we went out to dinner, and then, you know, like she was ringing, we made some phone calls and that sort of thing. But I wanted it to be not a manufactured experience, like we come in and there's, you know, a whole candlelit pathway into the, like,
rose petals everywhere.
It was I wanted to make it authentically us. And you know, just pick a time that, you know, I was all day. She goes, I knew there was something going on today. You were just like hyper today. That'd probably be why. I said, but I'd had the ring for about 6 weeks, and she's like, you sure you didn't just buy it today? I said, no. So I had to plan, you know, get the thing. I said, it's actually been sitting on the dresser under your nose for all this time, but you just haven't seen, like, I just left the box sitting on our dresser, and she hadn't seen it in all that time. Just hadn't looked.
Wow.
So I took great delight in that. But, you know, for me, that was a huge thing and I remember ringing my best friend and going, so I'm going to ask Sharon to marry me today. And she's like, right, that escalated fast, you know. And
I was going to ask you that in the beginning, because you seem to have met someone pretty quickly and got married pretty quickly, but you found her. Was it right before you told your husband, or?
No, about a year. So we met in the July, and she lived about 3 hours away from me. So we'd sort of meet like halfway every couple of weeks or so. And then she got a job down closer in the January, and then I'd sort of then come out in the June. So officially, to everybody else, I think we probably started our relationship in like the August, September.
Mm-hmm.
Unofficially, it was, you know, there's probably 12 months of our relationship that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So just because of like, I didn't, there are some people who would judge that necessarily, going, well, you're having this other relationship, and I was trying to figure out, how do I extricate myself from the situation I'd been in? I knew, and because that's when I got to that point, I was like, I don't know how to do this, but I need to do this, and I want to do this. So to some people, it probably does seem, we were engaged then in March 2021, and we got married. What year are we this year? March 22, we got married. We got engaged, and then April 23, we got married. So we were engaged for a year, and, you know, because we weren't in a rush. We're like, well, let's just pick a time and figure it out. And I'd actually brought forward when I proposed, because her mum had been unwell. And I was like, well, Nan needs to at least see that you've been engaged, and whether you get, you know, whether we actually get married. And then, mum turned a corner and she only wound up passing in January this year. So I'd kind of brought it forward, which is then how I'd communicated that to my ex, saying, oh, well, we've kind of accelerated things because Sharon's mum was unwell, and so it kind of made it an easy way to broach that conversation. But he was fine with all of that. And I mean, I probably could have asked him to come and take the photos for the wedding, and he probably like that's, but so for us for the timeline of our relationship, so we've been together a bit over 4 years now, where we knew this is my person. And we built our relationship really on that first 6 months of a strong foundation of friendship, of what are our values, and just long conversations, which you do when there's distance and, limited time. So we could actually spend a lot of time talking and figuring out who we are. And then the rest of the stuff is easy once it's built on that foundation of, because she was never going to fall in love with me. There was somebody else kind of on the scene when we were first talking. And I'm not competing with anybody. Like, cool, you do you, boo. But I was just being a good friend. Like, I was like, her mum had a fall, and one of these people that she was, sort of semi-interested in, her mum had surgery, and I was like, oh, what did XYZ say about that? She goes, oh no, her phone's been off. What? I was almost going to drive up there and take her a thermos of tea, because I'm like, oh, well, that must be stressful. Your mum's in surgery. Like, I'll come and sit with you while she's, coming. And I only told her but it was a 3-hour drive. I thought, how am I going to do that in a day? Couldn't figure it out. But, I was just being me. She said, you were so reliable and dependable and one of her friends said, don't you fall in love with her? And she goes, oh, no, I've no intention. And she would reinforce to me, you're a really good mate. We're really good friends, which is what we would say. I go, yep. And and in my head, I was like, yep, friend zone. That's cool. And then one day it sort of shifted a little bit. And I was like, now I'm not sure what zone I'm in. I don't really know. Went up to visit her. Kind of, we figured out where we're at. But she, she was always going to like stay in that friend zone. Like, that's all it was going to be. But I just kept being me, and she, like, it was those being reliable, showing up even when I didn't have to, that she's like, oh, you're actually a really good person.
That's so important.
Lisa, is she your age?
Yeah, she's about 18 months older than me.
Okay.
So she's just turned 51, and she was 51 in June, and I'll be 50 in December. So pretty close.
Do you feel like your life is just the life that you want is just now starting?
Yes. And, we've talked about it as well, about going, oh, I wish we'd met, 20, 30 years earlier so we could have had a whole life. But both of us have said we weren't ready we could not have the relationship we have today at that time, because we weren't all the life. Like, I'm always a big believer in you wind up exactly where you're meant to be. So if I hadn't have had all of these experiences, I wouldn't be able to show up in the way that I can show up, and vice versa. And we kind of feel like, yes, we wish we'd had that, but we know we couldn't have appreciated or been ready for it at that time. Like, there have been times I'm like, well, I wish I hadn't got married, because now, I feel like for him, it wasted 17 years of his life. And even when I came out to him, I said, you deserve to be happy, and I'm not that person who can give you what you need now. And it's selfish of me to think otherwise. But if I hadn't been through that, I wouldn't appreciate this and be able to have, like, the life we have now is amazing. Like, I feel like for the first time in almost 50 years that I'm actually living my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing.
And you're
being the person.
So much more authentic. I think it gives you all kinds of confidence to be okay with who you are, and all the life lessons and all the shit, that we carry with us, it's kind of nice to set that bag down, go forward a little bit lighter and a little happier. And, and especially with doing the podcast too, knowing that you're
Mm.
putting yourself out there and people are responding to it and relating to it, it's resonating with them. Like one of the biggest things when I think when we were doing the lesbian lounge years and years and years ago, we didn't understand our reach. Like we didn't wrap our heads around it,
Yeah.
and we were
Yeah.
doing it in a little spare bedroom in my little condo in Florida, and it was like girls' night, but with microphones on, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we didn't realize that there was a listener in Ireland, that
Mm.
would, listen to us while she was walking her dogs in the morning and in the
Mm.
evening. I mean, that was how I met my wife. My wife found the podcast while she was at university, and she
Wow.
had like an hour and a half commute back and forth, and she would listen to the show, and finally had the nerve to send us an email or whatever, and that was literally how
Mm.
we met, and then had to do the long distance thing. But we didn't understand our reach. We were having a good time, and we didn't think
Mm.
of it as a business. We weren't trying to figure out how to parlay it into making money. We were still stupid excited when we would get asked to hope to a pride event or women's fest or girls at gay days
Mm.
in Orlando, and those became annual events that we were continued to do throughout that 5-6 years. And then the emails that we would get from people, like a
Mm.
little listener in Ukraine, where it's not okay to be gay. She would
Mm.
say, I knew that I had two lesbian friends that I was going to hang out with on Wednesdays,
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
what gets me through
Mm.
these things. Another one of our really close friend now that lived in about 5 or 6 hours away in northern Florida was going through breast cancer and didn't tell anyone, didn't tell her family, didn't tell her parents, didn't tell her brothers, didn't tell her coworkers, nothing, and got through it. And she said, like, I always say I got through cancer alone, but that's not true. I got through it because of you guys. Like every
Mm.
week I thought I'm not going to make it, chemotherapy's making me sick. I'm not going to make it, but I knew I had to hang in there for Wednesdays,
Aw.
Wow.
that was, like those
Mm.
things, like all of a sudden, probably in our fifth or sixth year, it was starting to hit us, you know, like we were starting to see this little big reach that we had and people,
Mm.
that were listening. And then, then we started getting really good guests, like
Mhm.
you can get people from the L Word on your show, like
Wow.
you've you've made
You've
it,
made it.
right? When you can
Yep.
get JD Danner, get JD Danner on your show. I mean, like we started getting like Jane Lynch and
Wow.
you know,
Melissa Etheridge, right? Didn't you have
Melissa
Melissa Etheridge?
Etheridge a couple of times, yeah, the Indigo Girls.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was that part of it was great. Don't get me wrong, that part of it was really great, but it was knowing that we were bringing people together that might
Mm.
not otherwise even know each other. Like now we had listeners that were having Wednesday night parties, and
Wow.
now became
Yep.
Facebook
Wow.
friends that still keep in touch that were, you know,
Uh,
I think it was about maybe 2017, maybe. So
Mm.
the show had been over for a couple of years, and some of our listeners had become friends and texting and Facebook friends and stuff like that. And I decided to do like a reunion and try and get everybody together on I think at that time it was Google Hangouts or whatever it was.
Yep.
And everybody showed, like we weren't we didn't know
Wow.
who was going to show, and everybody showed all these years later. And I was doing an interview. Uh, was it just this year? Last year, I was doing an interview with this guy that was my producer before I even had a podcast. So it was when I was doing terrestrial radio, and when the radio station got bought, he was the first person that started doing internet radio. And he called me up and
Wow.
like, I got this great opportunity for you to come pitch yourself, and be on this internet radio thing.
Mm.
And I didn't know what it was. And I'm like, yeah, I'll come down, I'll do it, whatever. and we had a good run. We did it for like a year and build up a good following, and that's what led to the lesbian lounge. But I was talking to him because now he does a show called King of Podcasts, and he talks to people about their experience. And he was saying, who would have thought, like back then, that you would have reached that milestone, and brought all those people together that are still friends to this day, that still want to get together. I still have people that like know that I'm going back to Florida and they want to catch up, and that kind of thing. And you got them through these difficult, periods of their life by being yourself. You know what I mean? By sharing, like
mind blowing.
We talked about that the same stuff that you're talking about.
Can you see this? I don't think you can see this. I still have the lesbian lounge in my phone. It's not, you can't see it on the thing, I don't think, but
closer to your. Oh yeah, wait, there it is. Oh yeah.
I don't know. See it? Can you see it? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought, let me look. I think I still have it in my phone.
Yeah.
Isn't it like, and that's like, I've just started on this little adventure, for want of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
And, when people reach out to me and are like, they're leaving a comment going, that they've just subscribed, or I really like your honesty, or this or that. And I was just literally talking to my business coach this morning. I'm feel very kind of still uncomfortable with that, because I'm like, I'm just me, like that someone has something that I've said has resonated with them, or they've seen value in, or whatever. And I'm just being me, like, I lived 46 and a half years being somewhere else. I'm trying to be me now. Right. But the fact that, and he said, like, your mess is your message, and he's been consistent for 3 or 4 years, like someone needs to hear what you've been through. But when you get that, when it comes back to you, like you said, with the people, and you don't know, when I'm sitting here talking to my own face back at the camera, I don't know who's listening. Right. I'm not responsible for how they absorb it, take it in, yes or no, or they like it or they don't. I'm just putting it out there. Like, what happens to it once I speak it out into the world is none of my business. But to get that back is like, oh, I can make someone feel a little less heavy.
Yeah.
Then that's a good thing. And it's, when people say, hey, have you thought about creating a space for people to connect? And like, I hate the whole Facebook thing. Like, I started a little thing on a platform called School, where it's away from your socials. It's a bit more private. It can be a bit more vetted, a bit more. I said, okay, well, if people want to connect, I'll create a space and people can come in and connect. But I was like, you want to connect with me and people like me? And it's still sitting like really.
But the thing of it is like, I think, and I could be wrong, but even the people that are the most confident still want to feel accepted. They still want to feel like they've been heard or understood. Maybe understood is a better word. So I think when you're putting your story out there and it resonates with someone, they're understanding it. You lived it, so you understand it. And they're going to tell someone, oh my God, I listened to this podcast about such and such a thing. And it just, and they're going to listen and be like, you know what, you're right. Like that. And it just brings the like-mindedness, of filling a need in people, to say, it's not exactly my story, but man, I get this, man, I get this. Or, well,
I feel like in the community, there's an ethical need to have a somewhere that people can feel connected, that there's no other agenda driving it. So it's not for me to flog my latest, lifestyle program and life coaching and stuff. Like, we just want to connect because we want to talk about what you talked about in the episode and how it relates to me, or what I got from this. And maybe if I talk to 5 other people who heard the same thing,
I mean, honestly, especially at our age, you know what I mean? Like, we're all these youngins with their TikToks and their flip flops and their shit and their influencers and, their, whatever. and they're what, Gen Z and millennials and all this kind of stuff, and it's all like you were saying, how overwhelming, that part of it
Yeah.
is, you know, but then compound that with labels and how they identify, and what their sexuality is at this moment, because they're fluid, and it could be this and it could be that. I mean, like, I just wrapped my head around pansexual. I didn't know there was more. I really didn't know there was more coming. More down the pipe. More down
Every
the
time,
pipe.
To think you heard it all, right?
Honestly,
every time we see the acronym that's been extended, I say to my wife, I said, well, what's the A now? So it's like run off and Google, like, what is the A? Okay, now I'm educated. But
Yeah.
you're right. But I think that people who are coming out when they're 19, 20, 21, it's a very different experience to at our age when you're doing
yes,
it. You've lived a life, and
exactly.
now you're like, oh, guess what? I'm going to start again.
You're like
And we
the
have all this.
hippie person. It's a playground. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? While the
it's
younger kids are like, "What's that old person?"
and to be perfectly frank, at our age in life, we don't have time to bullshit and faff around. Like, we just need to get on with our life that we've just started. I don't
It's a
have time to
lot,
figure
like, I
out
don't need this kind
what
of
letter.
schooling. I barely
Yeah,
made it through high school. Like, by the skin of
what
my
letter of the alphabet am I going to be? I just need to get on with my life and be me now for
yeah.
the first time. And we've got all this, matching sets of baggage we're carrying with us, and we're trying to cast it off as we go. But I feel like, and this is going to make me sound really old, is like that generation, the same as the people who came before us, that where it was illegal to be gay and they were persecuted
Right.
and thrown in jails. We understand that, we can empathize with that, but that was not our lived experience, and we're grateful that they paved a way.
Yeah.
Those younger ones, definitely can't understand what it's like to have to. People have known you for 50 years of your life as this version of Denise, and now I'm going to be this whole shiny new version. And it's like,
Right.
we have to educate everyone in our lives, whereas you just rock up to class tomorrow and say, hey guys, I'm now this, and everyone goes, yeah, cool, bro, way you go.
I know. Yeah, right. That's
Good,
right.
right? Like, we're dragging like 2 bags, what I mean, of shit with us, and they've got like a rucksack. That's
Right.
it. They're carrying a
That
little
matches their
rucksack,
shoes.
right?
So,
Yeah.
This has been like such a cool chat, and I'm so grateful that you guys invited me for a start and made time to chat once we sorted out the time zone difference. But this has been like super, super big highlight for me, and I've loved meeting you guys and having this chat. It's been very cool for me.
Yeah, I love what you're doing. I love what you're putting out there, and I love what you're getting back, more importantly. And any time you need anything, like, just reach out, through the socials
Thank
and
you so much.
whatnot. We're here for you, man. Hope this is a
I
long,
appreciate that.
successful journey for you.
yeah.
I'm so grateful to you guys, and it's been so amazing to hear your stories as well, and realize that we're all sort of moving in the same orbit, and it doesn't have to be, well, this is my thing, I'm not gonna, this is
Yeah.
our, like, I just want, literally, hand on heart, is that if someone else hears your stories or my story and they just, for even that 30-minute episode, they just don't feel quite so alone, then I go, and even if I never know about it, I feel like then that's my purpose for getting up every day and breathing, that my story has helped somebody else.
That's
Absolutely.
what we do it. I mean, we love highlighting, spotlighting people in our community that are doing something positive, something that's making an impact, and if it's a small business, if it's, a podcast, if it's, music, art, film, book, like, we know how hard it is to get traction,
Yeah.
out there. So yeah, if we can take a little bit of time and shine a spotlight on those people, man, that's what we want to do. So, well
awesome.
done you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And well done you guys.
Wow.
Like, you've paved the way. It's amazing.
Well,
Right.
Denise.
I know. I've logged my hours, man. This is fun.
Yeah. That's great,
ladies.
and I just think we need more voices.
Fantastic. Well, this has been so fun. We will let you carry on
Amazing.
your day. I will
Yes.
carry on with my night. JD, little Target run, Starbucks, anything?
Yes, I'm doing actually a Target run. Boy, do you know me. You know me.
I do. Well, I will see you tomorrow. But listen, it's been an absolute joy. Much success, and we'll see you on the socials.
All right, see you there. Thank you, girls.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. My addiction. And I confess, my addiction is you. Don't ask me why I'm here tonight. I had to take this midnight drive to find you. And as I come in through the door, I see her dancing on the floor beside you. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. You look at me and in my eyes you see the hurt I can't disguise. I want you, and though it seems I look right through, I'm noticing your every move. She's got you. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. You're my addiction. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. I turn away to mask the pain, but jealousy reveals my